Wayne Voles coming to you live from our office here in Louisville, Kentucky. Being Daniel's on with me today. He's got us rocking and rolling here on Patreon with you guys. So we're looking forward to that. And hey, I appreciate all the help Daniel put into getting that set up and explaining that and going through that. So, hey, we appreciate you guys being with us today. Got a great show planned. Hopefully, everybody had a great weekend. Got a few things going to talk about today, and want to talk a little bit about the service that I received last week while I was out on vacation, and just was second to none. I want to talk a little bit about that and how small businesses, can and will commit to awesome and outstanding service. We want to talk a little bit about that, and also want to talk a little bit about Heckabus's birthday's today. Want to give him a shout out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, happy birthday, Heckabus. And I appreciate you listening to us, my friend. And I appreciate Aaron Walls. Yes, indeed, going to be back on here with us, and looking forward to having some interaction with Aaron Walls. Not to mention all the rest of you guys that hop in here with us. Fred, I appreciate you as well, and just everybody. I'm just going to say everybody because I know there's a lot of guys out there listening that we don't know about and never text in or never call in, but we know they're out there. So we appreciate you guys being in with us, and so yeah, as we move on to our new platform here, I'm looking forward, and I appreciate you guys following along with us with it. So with that being said, I want to share a little experience I had last week. Went to Hilton Head, South Carolina. First time I'd been there, and great place to visit, and would certainly go back. Different than what my comfort zone is as far as beach, but hey, it's good to we talk about it all the time on this show about how change is good, and it was a good thing to go down there and do something different. I will say that the beaches are 100% different on the Atlantic side than they are over on the Gulf side, over there in that Central Florida, Siesta Key, Sarasota, that area there. But man, as far as hospitality, I would say it's second to none. Second to none. Service was outstanding. Uh, Handled crowds really well. I mean, the restaurants we went to were good. I'd say the only issue we had, which didn't even bother the trip really, was the keypads getting into the pool area, in and out of in and out of the pool area. Were having a little issues with. So with that being said, if that's the biggest thing we got to worry about, then we've had a really great trip. And but that was it. It was just sometimes the keypad was functioning as is, and sometimes it wasn't. So, but there was always somebody around the pool area to let you in with that. So, but it was crazy. It's like you'd punch it and it'd work fine, and then you'd punch it again after you leave out and it's not working. So, and I think the reality that my takeaway from that was simply, you know, we have little things within our own businesses, our individual businesses, that certainly can make things a different experience for our customers. I'm trying to think about how I want to explain this. It's about the customer experience, basically. That I never once called and said anything about it, though. So they may not know if nobody else did, even though there were several people. It wasn't like it was me not being able to enter my code right. I just never let them know. So, yeah, should I have called and said, hey, we're having a little access problem? Probably so, but it was always a solution of somebody would let you in,
Yeah.
same way, I'll let somebody in,
Yeah.
I
I think that's too where when you're talking about your own business, like what are you doing to ask for that? What are you doing to get feedback that can be helpful beyond just, oh, this is them saying how great we are.
Yeah.
Like 5-star Google reviews are great, but you also want to encourage people to just in general share their experience more so privately, right? Like a
Right.
what do you call them? The ones that we do, kind of the
Evaluations,
yeah, like the evaluations and
a
stuff.
digital or a written evaluation.
Yeah. So then oh well, these things are what we struggle with. So then if we get better at those, maybe we'll get more 5-star Google reviews or one specifically from this person.
Right.
So yeah, always encouraging honesty and like that communication and realistic feedback from your customers. Because like you said, if you don't know something is going on or going wrong or whatever, then
Yeah.
you can't fix it.
So, good morning, Seth. Yeah, I actually appreciate you tuning in this morning with us, Seth. And yeah, we had a great time in Hilton, and actually just talking about the customer service that we had, while we were there, from everything all the way around. I mean, whether it was a restaurant interaction, we went on this thing called uh, Donuts and Dolphin Cruise. Again, small business, like most of us here, listening here on radio. And I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it was a company that was got a little gnat flying around. Hadn't seen one of them for a minute. Uh, but they did a great job on welcoming you onto their, I'm gonna call it a boat. It's what it was. And but just everybody was, everybody was friendly. I mean, it's just, and my takeaway on that was, I'm sure there's days when they don't have a great day. Well, matter of fact, when we got on, the captain of the boat, he's like, "Hey, I just want to tell you all thanks for coming out on such. It's not a great day to be out on the water, but you came anyway." So immediately he was not being apologetic, but appreciative of the fact that, we did what we did. And that was, keep our reservation and, come on the boat with them. And we were very fortunate. They had good donuts, number one, which was important to Tabitha. And she likes her donuts and her sweets in general. But they were appreciative that we knew the water was going to be choppy because it was windy. It wasn't raining or anything like that, but it was a windy day to be out on a boat. And but it wasn't like we were out on a fishing boat either.
Yeah.
A small boat. It was a nice size boat to be on. But
It'd be a fun business to be in.
yeah,
At times,
you're
of course,
catching.
you're always going to have.
Yeah, you figure you're catching people at a good point.
Yeah, they're on vacation. They're probably having fun. You're out on the ocean looking at dolphins every day. You probably get some donuts.
Yeah, and they made it clear we're not feeding the dolphins the
Oh,
donuts.
yeah, imagine.
Evidently, there's a big fine involved, not from them, but just you're not supposed to feed dolphins.
Makes sense.
Or
I'm sure for the fact of becoming too
dependent.
And what's the word when they like when animals start to not fear humans anymore, like when they become like urbanized and stuff, like when
Right.
you see deer walking up in people's yards and not run away when you come outside kind of
Right.
thing. And so I'm sure that's probably harmful for dolphins as a whole too.
Well, and they mentioned something on the boat, and I don't know if it was fact or fiction. I assume it was the truth, but about the reason they didn't want you like even feeding them fish, like
Yeah.
is because if you've got to that point you just brought up, Daniel, but also that if you've got some type of fungus or virus or whatever on your fingers or hands or whatever, and then you're introducing that to that dolphin, they're like, well, they can't go to they're not going to a doctor, I mean,
Yeah.
so it's about their health and welfare as well. So, and and turning that around and saying, hey, how do we turn that into a business topic? It's basically you doing what's right for your customers as well. The same way that it would be really great for all those sightseeing boats to have a zillion dolphins come up, and they could do that easily by getting them a lot of food off each individual boat that's out there, because when we were out there was probably 5 or 6 of them riding around.
Well, I think also not even just your customers, but what's doing right for their property. Even though your customer might not understand why they can't have 3 pounds of whatever put down
fertilizer.
every day.
Yeah.
Here's why that's not good for your yard. And here's why you're actually going to be better off and happier with me not doing this. You know, the educational side of that too.
Yeah. So,
you know, they don't have an industry in 10 years if everybody's feeding the dolphins potentially.
Right. You know, something I thought was pretty neat too, and this goes kind of go back to the educational side of it. But dolphins, and they didn't address any other species, but they don't drink water out of the ocean. Their water is obtained through the fish that they eat during the day, through they said the plasma of the fish they eat is how they, and they eat like an individual dolphin on average, a bottlenose dolphin will eat between 40 and 50 pounds of fish a day. So
pretty cool. I wonder how many fish that kind of equates to,
Depends on how big they are. No.
Yeah. But they got to eat. You know, they probably have like, oh, here's the fish we commonly eat. Yeah. That would be like 10 fish maybe or whatever.
Or whatever it amounts to. Yeah. And fish wise. Because when you do see somebody, feeding them, and they're going after what they call bait fish, the captain was kind of joking, but halfway serious. He said, really, we follow the seagulls, because the seagulls are after the bait fish and the dolphins are after the same thing. So we just kind of see where the seagulls are flying, and where they're flying, we head toward, and generally we run into some dolphins. So it goes back into the logic of running your business. What do your customers want? How you going to get it to them? And there you go. And so it was a really good, fun thing. Enough about dolphins, I guess, but it was really fun. We were out about an hour and a half on that. And other than that, man, we just, I can honestly say too down there, and then we'll move along, but I had probably some of the best seafood I've ever had. I don't know why. I don't know if it's
something a little different, different.
I don't know what it was, but it was really, really all good. And the only thing that I didn't found competing was clam chowder. Now I only had it at two different places, but man, I had everything else was just really, really good. So, and like I said, the service in the restaurants was awesome. The grocery store service was awesome. It's just, we got to think about how we're treating our customers basically within our businesses, as basic as that sounds. And I know it's like, man, we're going back to basic 101 here, but it really is, because it really does boil down to, when, we've talked about perceived value quite a bit, but the customer's perception is your reality as a business owner. And I think that's something that we all need to look at pretty hard. So speaking of customer service, our buddy Stephen West with Sigma Organics came by today. Stephen, if you're listening to us, I know he said he was going to be rolling pretty hot today, but he dropped us off some fungicide, just a bag or two. It wasn't much. Just, hey, I understand you needed some fungicide, so I dropped it off for you. So that's really it's the little things that you can do for your customers.
Yeah.
It goes back to, my dad used to always say, if you take care of the little things, the big things take care of themselves. And there's a lot of truth to that when it comes to running a business.
Yeah. Well, like being in his business, like everybody that he's competing against sells fungicides and herbicides and weed killers and this, that. Everybody sells products, right? Like,
yeah,
that's not distinguishing anybody.
Right.
But what is, that is what it distinguishes him, is his customer service. What is he doing to make his customers feel like, he's providing them something above and beyond just the product? And that's, once again, going back to your own business, everybody's cutting grass or trimming hedges or doing this, doing that. But what are you doing to kind of go above and beyond?
Going above and beyond. And then, it's like this morning, right before I came on, Daniel, there was a gentleman that called in. We did some work for last July 17th, I think it was. And he called and he says, I was calling back to get on your schedule again for some cleanup work and some mulching. He said, I was really impressed with the level of service that you all gave me, and I wanted to call you back and have it done again. Just get things cleaned up, trimmed, remulched, and all that. And um, kudos to Katie and everything, all the time and effort she puts into our retargeting, if you will, of our customers. And kind of like Daniel, what you do with Profits Unlimited, right? But and I know you have some input with our lawn service too. So, but my point is, it it's a circle, if you will. You know, got to care about what you're doing. You got to care about your marketing. You got to care about the sales process. You got to care about the end result of the work being completed. And his mind, all of that was completed satisfactory, from the phone call into the office, that lead generation, going to see him, selling the work, doing the work. Our crew that was on site, did a great job for him, communicated with him. He said, so it makes you feel good. And I know, I guess that this is going to sound a little bit weird, but I don't know if it's weird, or I don't know, Daniel, you can figure it out if it's weird or not. But it's good to hear that the whole process that the whole experience that customers have with your business was a positive experience. Now, we know we have negative experiences sometimes, right? I mean, we all do. We're not making everybody happy all the time. Wish we could, but we can't. But that is the goal, is to provide excellent service for somebody. And and that causes me to look at something else that I do want to talk about today, and that is, what makes a customer go bad? What how does something go from how and let's hope it don't happen, but it does with some. What causes a customer to go bad? That's what I want y'all to think about a little bit today, and but I think, first of all, it can be a lot of different things. I mean, that's number one. It could be a million things, but I think first and foremost, the easiest thing that causes a customer to go bad is complacency on our end as the business owner. Okay. And for you guys that have smaller services, you wear all the hats. You're the owner, you're the operator, you're the salesperson, you're the accounting, you're the production, you're all of it. So don't ever, this is my suggestion with that, is don't get complacent with a client and say, well, they've been a customer for 5 years, or they've been a customer for 10 years. We talk about it all the time, or quite a bit, about customers being temporary stops. And but I think when we look at how does a relationship go bad, I think the simplistic answer to that a lot of times is complacency on either end. It can be complacency on your end as the business owner, or it can be complacency on the customer's end, thinking, because here's what I mean by that. I think sometimes, and I'll put myself in that role as well too. So, and when I say in that role, I mean of somebody that gets a little complacent with service that I'm receiving from somebody. But the reality is, somebody gets used to good service, right? They get used to calling somebody, they can call you, they can get a hold of you, you respond well, you've done everything well on your end. And then sometimes your customer forgets how hard it was to get a hold of somebody, or getting the work done right, or the follow-up not taking place. And so complacency can go on both sides of that. So I think that's one way where customers go bad. I think another way that customers go bad are lifestyle changes, you know, um, business changes, and I mean, and let's look at some of that. I mean, I know from a business change standpoint, and I think that's a fair thing to bring up and talk about, Daniel, because I think what happens a lot of times is from a business perspective, the customer that got you there is not the customer that's going to keep you there, maybe. And what I mean by that is, when we first start out in our businesses, we're gung ho, we're out there just going after customers, and we really don't have a demographic, if you will, of who our ideal customer is or should be. So, with and when you change as a business owner, and I just had a discussion with one of our Profits Unlimited clients the couple of weeks ago about this exact thing, that you know you have to, when you change um, as a business, then you can expect to lose some of that existing customer base. And because you're when you change demographics, your demographics of your customer base are going to change. And so it's not that you don't care about them, and it's not that they don't care about you. It's just for some reason or another, either your business changed, their lifestyle changed, maybe they had a situation, maybe their job changed. Job changes affect mowing services tremendously, because a lot of people that get their lawns mowed, it is definitely a want basis and not a need basis. I know we experienced that in 2008. I know that's, for some of you guys, that's like, my God, that's too long ago. But the reality of it is, you got to be prepared for things like that. Is it going to happen all the time? Probably not. But but economy is cyclical. I think that's fair, Daniel, don't you? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's happened once, it's going to happen again. It's just a matter of when, you know. So, how are you positioning your company to survive the ups and downs of the cyclicalness? That'd be a hard one to spell, cyclicalness, but I think that's the right word, of the economy. You know, so you got a customer. It's been a good customer for a while, and what can make that customer go bad or change or look for somebody different is money issues within their lives as well. It could be a divorce. I mean, we've had quite a few customers in the past that have, said, "Hey, I've got a divorce, and hey, things are tighter than what they were. I'll give you guys a call back in the future, but right now I can't afford it." So uh, those are things that are non-controllable, if you will. That's just a few that we could think of a heck of a lot more of them. But, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a job change, lifestyle changes, and then you look at from your business side, hey, maybe it's, hey, I'm going to change who I'm going after. I need to go after a different clientele, and that's the big one for most businesses is when you sit back. As I was just talking to a gentleman over the weekend, and Tim and I were talking about price increases. And Tim Brennan, some of you guys may are familiar with him. He's up around Albany, New York, but and he's got a dealership as well as a lawn and landscaping company. And he just called Saturday, and we were just talking about it, about what do we think an acceptable margin is uh, with the economy the way it is. How hard do you want to push for a raise? Basically, is what it amounts to. And uh, I mean, the obvious answer is, Corey, that's an excellent point. Communication lapses. Um, Absolutely. Thanks, man. I just saw that on my sidebar pop up from you, man. I appreciate that. So, but you guys, you still feel free to text me at 502-550-8307. It's 502-550-8307. Feel free to text, or if it's easier for you to type in, you can do that as well. It's nice to have that option here, Daniel.
Pretty nice, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was really neat and talking with Tim, and I think it's something we all think about is we always think about, price changing in the spring, right? But like he and I were talking about, sometimes it becomes necessary for those price changes to take place during the year, you know, and whether it's let's just use fuel. That's one that's on everybody's mind right now. But it's just overall operating expenses can change, and maybe they go down. I mean, and the more diversified you are, uh, then the more spread out that overhead can be, and it doesn't maybe require such a hard push on one particular service that you're offering as far as an increase may be concerned. I know we've done that in the past before, and as where we've shared some of the expense of one service with another service, and and um, it just helps you from that standpoint as, hey, maybe I don't need a 9.5% increase. Maybe I can spread it out over a couple other services, and instead of having a 9.5% increase on fert and weed, or just using that as an example, maybe I can do 4% there and have a 2% increase on the lighting side of my business, and recover that overhead and those expenses through that. So that's where diversification really comes into play. We're not going to talk about that today, but that is certainly an advantage to being more diversified. Is you do get that opportunity to spread your cost out over a wider variety of services and use rates, whether it's a truck or whether it's a piece of equipment or whatever it may be. So a lot of different things, a lot of different things. So, um, but I did want to talk a little bit about that today on what makes a customer go bad. And sometimes it's like I said, sometimes it's us, sometimes it's a customer, sometimes it's a combination of both. Um, always, Mike Murphy says being reactive and not proactive, and I agree 100% with that. Uh, being reactive. There's times for us to be reactive and there's times for us to be proactive. I think you got to be prepared for both sides of the table on that. I know for me, it's a whole lot better for us to be proactive on, hey, this is what we're going to be doing, promoting, let's say, for time of the year. Maybe we're coming up in, hey, we're probably going to have some grubworm issues, or we're going to have some fungicide issues, or some insecticide issues, you know but and we're going to have some seed. We're going to be coming into the seeding time of the year. So whether it's selling add-on services or just particular problems that may be coming on based on the time of the year, that's where you can be proactive. But certainly being reactive is very important as well. We got to react to what's happening today. What's happening today within your business. And it may be something that you had. Hey, generally we see this, but man, this year we're having a problem with sob webworms, let's say. I mean, wasn't too many years ago. It was a huge problem around our part of the country, but it's normally not. So we weren't very proactive on it. So we had to Mike's point, we had to be very reactive to it. So uh, reactive can require a, a faster turnaround to a solution for somebody. Where being more proactive gives you time to think about it and say, hey, how are we going to get this? How are we going to get it done? And have a I don't want to say a better plan. What's the right way of saying that? It's not really
I think it's just having, even reaction should be,
a
to some
plan.
degree, should be proactive. You're going to proactively know what you're going to do if this happens. Your
Right.
reaction is proactive.
Yes.
Like if this happens, if they run the ball on this play, then we're being proactive and knowing what we're going to do. But then once they run the ball, we're going to react to it.
Right. This is how we're going to.
Yeah.
This is what's going to happen. So it all boils down to having that plan in place, knowing that, hey, some of again, and not, this isn't really a customer temporary stop thing. It's more of looking at it, but it kind of is a sidebar to that, I guess. But you know, how does that relationship go bad, or what causes that relationship to go bad? And I think we've hit that nail on the head pretty good with several different examples. And I just ask you to ask yourself is, you know, what are you doing for your customers to give them an opportunity to look at your business and this level of service that you're giving them and to get the feedback? Or because I'll give them the feedback on that gate code not working if they send me something. If I get a hey, glad you stayed with us, take a few minutes to take this, to tell us about your stay or something, but I wasn't going to physically make a phone call to them. Another one, I didn't want to bother them because it wasn't a problem that they needed to be bothered with, although it was, realistically, right?
It depends on who
you
that
know,
person is. For you, it wasn't, but for somebody else, it might be the reason they don't book there again because
correct.
they had to, their wife had to go to the bathroom. She couldn't make it in time.
Yeah.
You know,
No, that's a really good point. So
but that's more so on them as I think at least as the business to send something out.
to find out, yeah, how was everything. Happy Monday to you too, Craig. Appreciate you hopping in here with us, buddy, and appreciate you being in here in the profit circle with us. Absolutely, we're talking about what causes a customer to go bad sometimes. So, and I think we touched on some pretty decent topics so far, and then if you do have a situation where either it's you that have become complacent or your customer has become complacent, there's always room to go back and fix it. That's the thing. And the whole thing in selling about no just means not right now. So just because, you had a customer for X number of seasons or doesn't mean that it's and then you lose them, doesn't mean that you're not going to ever pick them back up. So, be certainly retarget them. Um, um, Craig said he's just talking about bad customers. He's dealing with one right now. I mean, it is. It's a part of our everyday life as business owners, and but it's up to us to figure out, hey, how'd that relationship go bad, and is it on us? Maybe it's not. There's a lot of times that it's not really on us as the company, but it goes back to that thing where it may not be our fault, but it is our problem. Is there a solution for it? So that's something to think about too, you know, is what are we doing to try to find out if there are any of these? And that may be my thing, Daniel, the gate codes, just be the code word for it. Yeah. Is there, how many gate codes do you have out there that aren't enough to really have somebody get mad at you, but it would have just made the experience perfect, even though the goal was excellence, because everything else was fine tuned. Okay. And it's something as simple as the gate code on and off not working, which probably made it worse than not working at all. Because initially we thought, well, okay, maybe we just wrote the number down wrong,
Yeah.
until other people were having the same problems. And then you got one, then everybody's saying, you're using 6563. Yeah, so now the code's being distributed amongst everybody. So come to find, yeah, everybody had the same access code. So, which made us all feel a little bit better, that, hey, okay, well, we're all having a little bit of problem with it. So, anyways, just wanted to talk about that for just a second. But, oh, Lord, what'd you do fun this weekend, Daniel?
Well, Friday, I feel like what we do Friday. We went to the pool for a couple of hours.
Oh.
Friday night. Did that. Picked up Kyle's dog.
Yeah, so y'all were dog sitting.
Saturday I was.
Yeah.
Caitlin worked Saturday.
Yeah.
So
how was Lily?
She was good.
Glad to come over and visit Uncle Daniel.
Yeah. We had a good time. We went outside, sat on the deck for a while, went back in, went back out. It's kind of a little hot, not too hot, but I didn't know how she tolerates the heat, so I kind of had her in and out a little bit, but pretty good. And then Kyle came, picked her up after they got back from the lake.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, we really just started the day with
Kinda
a
hung
little
out.
little walk, and then we did a little meal prep. I think that was after, and then we went to the pool again for a few hours.
Nice.
Afternoon. Then came home and really just hung out. Didn't do too much. Just kind of waiting for the sports to start back up again, since now we're into the NBA finals and the NHL finals.
Uh-oh.
So,
Who's your team on the
I
hockey side?
think the hockey side, I'm probably going for Carolina.
Are
I
you?
was hoping Colorado would beat
Now, where they
Vegas.
at?
They're in North Carolina, I think, in
Okay.
Raleigh,
Okay.
I think. And then I was hoping that Colorado would beat Las Vegas, just because I'm more of a Colorado fan.
Yeah.
And they didn't end up beating them. It was like a 4-1, so it wasn't really even close. But
So
I don't know. For the basketball, probably the Spurs. Going for the Spurs,
Oh
probably.
yeah.
They're in it. They have some good young players.
Seems like they
Fun to
go on
watch.
forever. Craig's got a really good point here. We'll address too here in
Yeah.
a minute when we get done with sports talk. But it is seems like gosh, the basketball.
October to about last
When
part
they
of June.
finish up into June.
Couple weeks, yeah. It'll be probably mid-June then, yeah.
Oh, it's a lot of games to play. I was watching a little bit of the College World Series. I love the girls softball, man. It's just crazy to watch how competitive that is, and that game's crazy. But they had a couple upsets on that as well. I actually watched my first football game yesterday.
The UFL or
whatever that is that's going
XFL.
on now.
I can't remember which one it is. They have both going on.
But they got some pretty neat rules. You talk about business models and stuff.
Yeah, they have seen some of their.
They do have the 4-point field goal that I've talked about.
Really?
Yeah.
How far does that have to
Anything over 60 yards.
Wow.
Is a 4-point field goal.
Changes it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And they actually had one yesterday.
Oh, wow.
They actually had one yesterday.
I guess it does emphasize the continuation of trying to kick them further if they're worth more,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I wonder then if it's almost like that can become a pipeline to the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a pretty good kicker, but not good enough to make it yet. But so I go there and then I get good, and then they have me kicking further and further because it's worth more, and then I get so good that I can play in the NFL.
Could be because one of the announcers yesterday, made the comment. He said this guy should be kicking in the NFL, which was kind of cool, but I kind of felt bad for his team. Like you're saying, okay, you're playing less than,
I mean, maybe too, it's one of those things where it's like he could be a kicker in the NFL, but it's also the off season. So maybe since he's not quite yet in the NFL, he can go ahead and play this year, make some money, and then once the next roll around happens for I don't know when NFL,
maybe get a tryout or something. Yeah,
I would think by June they would probably do that though. I don't know.
Yeah, because August they start rolling around again or something, isn't it?
September, yeah. A couple weeks into September, I think.
Yeah. But Craig sent us a comment, which is 100% on target here. He said, sometimes keeping bad customers is a problem.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's even one of those things where people say, I don't have to advertise, which maybe you don't, but part of that customer cycling should be that, I know that there's X% of my customers that if I lost them, my life would be less stressful. So let me keep that in mind when I'm looking for some new customers to filter those ones out and filter the new ones in.
Filter your new ones in, because I know, one of the most profitable words you can say is no.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to figure that out, guys. I'll be the first one to step up on the podium. A lot of people won't throw themselves under the bus, but you guys know I do it. I throw myself under the bus all the time, because I've made a lot of mistakes over the course of 47 years, and hell, we still make some mistakes. But the reality of it is the most important word to understand that's okay in your business language is no. You don't fit. I had to tell a lady that today, that and she's like, "Why don't I really just don't understand why you can't service my property?" I'm like, "Man, we just don't have ample space." I said, "Where you're at is on street parking, and not that that's not bad enough, right? When I say on street, they don't have any driveways, so all theirs is all the people are parking, along the street, and then we pull in with a truck and a trailer, and we just don't have anywhere to park." And then they want to say, "Well, there's an alley." And no, we're not parking in the alley. I mean, we're just, that's a business decision we made. That ain't what I told her, but I mean, so we just don't do that. But for various reasons, we're not parking our truck and trailer in an alley. It doesn't make sense to do it, so um, that's a situation where, yeah, would have been nice to add on an account. Absolutely. You know, especially because it was a referral, but, you know, it just didn't fit. And part of us as business owners, we got to understand what fits, what doesn't fit. And and sometimes they turn into bad customers, right, Craig? I mean, I think that's certainly a reality of it too. They started out one way and that is the same perception that our customers have about us too, right? So this is a two-way street about, customers. What causes a customer maybe to go bad, or what causes a company to go bad is, you know, um, just not really understanding who your customer needs to be, or not following through, whether that's caused by complacency or money changes, job changes, uh, divorces, or just not even a divorce. Maybe it's just a relationship change, you know. And the smaller your company is, the more that is the flow through to your customer's perspective. You know, I mean, if that's yeah, that's a fair and rational statement. Because again, going back to that, if you're a smaller company, then and you're having bad emotional day or week or whatever, that's certainly more than likely going to fall back into your customers' hands, even though you're trying to keep the two segregated. So it's almost as challenging as picking the right equipment for a job, but not not as hard. But we the other day I was talking to somebody about that exact topic, and you think, well, Wayne, that's a weird transition from bad customers to not using the right equipment. But, you know, that was when we transitioned into wanting to be more efficient in in mowing. Yep, let's look at the mowing side just for now. And we went to larger equipment for some of the properties. It's knowing that you're not going to be able to use that larger equipment or your largest equipment on every stop either, because that can turn a good customer into a bad customer by the customer service being different. You know, um, I personally, when it comes to mowing, and I like a 52. That's just, unless I'm just in a wide open field area mowing, you know, I like a 52-inch mower to cut with. That was my mower of choice, because you get much wider than that, and if you've got any contour changes at all, it become you got uneven cuts or scalp marks, or a lot of things that come into play. And that is certainly that can send a customer into a tailspin. And now all of a sudden, it's like, okay, what's causing this relationship to go bad? Now, on the other hand, um, we got to be cognizant enough to know that we got to hit that balance between efficiency and quality of work. Because I think that's something where a lot of times it is about, hey, how quick can we get to the next job? But on the other hand, it should also be about, is the job being performed up to the company standards? you know, or don't sacrifice quality for speed, basically, is what I'm getting at. And I see that happen quite a bit in our industry where, a lot of times contractors, business owners will sacrifice um, some of the quality of the work just to get the job done faster. And I think you're positioning yourself for a big headache with that. That was something that Tim and I were actually talking about. Tim Brennan, we're talking about Saturday, some of that as well. And that, there's a fine line between what's efficient and what's too fast. And don't get it's not always hung up on how quick can we get it done. Don't get yourself hung up in that because it's bigger is not always better, but bigger equipment's not always better. you
Yeah.
know
Well, I think that too goes back to like your bidding process. Are you bidding the job based on 100% or even 120% every single week? And that's
right,
is that realistic? It's not. There's and with mowing, it's of course it might be the difference in a small difference, right? It might be a very small difference between what does 85% look like versus 95 or whatever that may be. But
right.
it's still an important difference to know and understand and bid at, especially as you start to have more and more of those, more and more customers.
Right.
Those minutes do start to add up.
Mike said, Daniel took the words right out of my mouth. He said, I also think guys bid jobs and fill a schedule based on 100% efficiencies.
Right.
And I know here we started 80%. I mean, we started 80. Very few jobs do we ever bid here go above an 80% efficiency factor because we know we've got a certain amount of inefficiency built into our radius or our golden circles, we call it. We got efficiencies or inefficiencies built in for load and unload time. Or whether, and that could be in fert and weed, that can be in mowing, that could be in landscaping, you know, so to think you're going to go out there, you might be thinking, well, my 100% efficiency is really at a 90% of factor. Don't think of it that way. Come up with a baseline that you're going to start. And trust me, I've found that 80% is about the right number. I mean, for us anyway. I'm not saying it's right for everybody out there, but it is a realistic number. And then if you add drive time to it, then you're doing, you're adjusting for drive time. Weather. Think about how much the weather. Mike just sent us that. How much the weather affects our efficiency. You know, I mean, every we could do everything right. Tabitha and I were talking about this just the other day, Daniel, and it's nothing new to your ears, but I said we can do the service related industry, not just landscaping or mowing, but the service related industry. It could be construction guys, whatever, roofers, fill in the blank, man. Irrigation companies. The weather is directly related to our profitability on the job, you know. And if it's not an in and out job, then it even impacts it even more. So, and that's one of the things that we need to look at as business owners too is what. And it's funny. Tim and I were talking about this Saturday. I said we've got some jobs bid down at 35% efficiency. But there's a lot of curbs, there's a lot of islands, there's a lot of ditch line, and all those things just come into play when you're doing your lawn applications, your mowing, your mulching. It's all things that slow you down. So you owe it to yourself to remove your ego, if you will, for a second and say, hey, where does that efficiency line start for us based on our normal customer, whatever normal may be, and it's going to be different for every one of us. Okay, they may be similar, but they're still going to be different. And that's why I said for us, we started an 80% efficiency factor. And that's where I would suggest that you look at it if you haven't looked at it yet, and come up with, hey, hey, you can always do better, right? I mean, there's some of this pay for performance pay and bonuses out there that all of a sudden, you incentivize performance, but you got to be, and there's not a thing wrong with that. So any of you guys using that or listening to me, don't hear me saying it's wrong. It's absolutely not wrong. But what I also want you to keep in mind though is when you start paying for performance, which is a good thing, you also got to worry about, okay, now are we trying to get too quick on the job, and are we going to sacrifice the quality of the job, and then how does that come back off of that? And so that, and I know there's answers to that as well. We're not going to talk about that topic today, but the reality of it is there's a lot of different things that come into play um, when it comes into efficiencies, choosing the right equipment for the job. It's not, bigger's not always better, smaller's not always better. You know, but smaller sometimes will be more functional than bigger from a quality standpoint. Okay, so uh, that's just something to think about. And I'm not saying go out and change all your equipment out to less efficient equipment. I'm not saying that at all. But know that um, I think that's probably one of the biggest complaints we used to get was residentially was the size of the equipment. You know, and got even back in the day when we had our ride-on sprayer. Um, and used it in a limited capacity, you know, um, and I think that's changed too. People aren't as opposed to that now as they were when it first came out. But it was like they thought 4, 5, 6 minutes was bad on their yard. Now you're down to 3 minutes on the yard, and it's like, well, there's no way my application was right. So and that again, that goes back to education, right, Daniel? I mean
Yeah.
that's what that's going back to. But still, it goes back to how much pressure are we putting on ourselves, trying to be too efficient, versus let's just find an acceptable level of efficiency that our customers will take, if you will, and that we're willing to provide as well. So, kind of beat that horse longer than we wanted to, but I don't know. There is a very fine line between efficiency, profitability, you know, and people's perception of you caring about the job. And I think that's what you work out within your businesses, based on your crew, your customer. Where is that? Where's that fine line? Where's that fine line? Is it, is it saying, hey, we're going to have a minimum amount of time spent on this property of 8 minutes or 7 minutes or 9 minutes, whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is. It's going to be all based on square footage. But know also that you get into what's called the law of diminishing returns that we'll talk about on another show as well. Whereas we try to get too fast, or whether it's through equipment or people, and people makes it even worse. But I can understand the people side of it because you never know about employees. I mean that's the other side. I mean, hell, we had a guy that was started with us this spring, did a really good job, and all of a sudden goes ghost. And I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of weird. You know. So then we say, okay, well, let's look at equipment on the efficiency side and see, what we can do to be more efficient with the equipment we got on the jobs that we have. So it is a fine balance, So whether we're talking about customers going good or bad, or efficiency factors being too low or too high, I would say this about efficiency factors. Most companies that I've worked with, initially their efficiency factors are based too high for those that are using them. And then when you start looking at real numbers on adjustments, that it's kind of like when a guy says, well, hey, I've got a minimum and this just happened, just happened. He says, I've got a minimum unless it's really small, and then I'll do it for a little less. Well, then that's not a minimum. And I mean, we're not going to get into that today, but again, that's what we run into. So, I think our major takeaways for today, simply is know that customers can go bad on either end. Maybe you get complacent, maybe they get complacent. There's a lot of different reasons, but know that there are going to be lifestyle changes within your customer's life and your life, whether it's a job change, whether or anything, a divorce, a separation, kids. I mean, there's a lot of things that come into play that we as business owners need to try to differentiate. And then ask yourself, what can we do to head some of that off? Even though we may not be hearing the complaints, what are we doing to try to head those things off? So um, some of them we can fix, some of them we can't. Goes back to my buddy Steve Rush used to say, some will, some won't, so what? And I think that's what we got to worry about. Craig bringing up that really good point about bad customers are the problem sometimes. Absolutely. Let's make that one of our major takeaways today, that it's okay to fire a customer. It is perfectly okay to fire a customer, and maybe not let them in. Like kind of like today, I didn't enjoy telling that person that was a referral that we couldn't service their property, but that was the best thing for us. The last thing we want to do is have to go back two or three different times to try to find a spot to park when we know going into it that, hey, this is going to be an issue there. So with that being said, we're going to wrap it up today. Daniel, thanks for helping me get through.
Yes.
As always.
Yeah.
And again, I appreciate you guys being on Patreon with us and in the Profit Circle with us. I'm gonna let Daniel tell you real quick how to share the love, if you would, Daniel.
Yeah, really. I mean, just letting people know where it is, that it's now right here within the Profit Circle, and obviously you're listening, so you know how to do it. You know how to get there. So if someone doesn't know how to do it, you can obviously send them our way. But if you want to tell them, hey, it's this easy. All you gotta do is do this, 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 and this. But really, all you gotta do, download the app, create your free account, join the Profit Circle. There you go. You're ready to go.
You're off
a
and
couple of
running.
steps. But like I said, just if you are listening, you obviously know that you're in here. So we would definitely appreciate it, as we definitely did before too, if you just share that with anybody on your social media or whatever. If you're just make a post or whatever, we try not to bother you too much with that kind of stuff, but it would definitely be helpful in this transitional time.
Yeah.
Just to let people know, or share the post we make, whatever, that hey, this is where our show is. We're still out here. We're still doing it, and this is how you do it. So
yeah, because you know how some of these social media pages are. They don't let you go out and
yeah, they don't let you promote yourself a
can't
lot.
promote yourself, which is okay. I get that too, but we certainly feel like we got some of the best knowledge in the country to share with guys. We've certainly shared it at more direct seminars than most people that I can think of or know. There's a lot of great consultants out there that can help you with your business, but there's also a lot of egotistical egotists out there as well. So,
and it's still 100% free. So if that's something somebody asks, yes, you can still listen absolutely 100% free. Patreon app is free, and you can join the Profit Circle's free tier membership and listen live. So that's our main thing, is we wanted to keep this part of what we do available for anybody and everybody.
All right. With that note, we'll see you on Wednesday, 10 a.m. I will. Daniel's got his show he's hopping in with. And hey, we'll see you guys next time. And remember, profit is not a dirty word.